Hey, this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review, the last Produce Reporter Week in Review. More on that
It
later in
is.
the episode. Yeah, stay to the end. Let's talk about what's coming up, though. I wore red for you. I don't have one single item of Chiefs anything in this house because we are a house Vikings. Um, even though I'm from Kansas City originally. But we got the Chiefs coming up in the big game. And
Again, these
again,
these kids probably think it's just every early February the Chiefs play in the Super Bowl. It's 4 out of 6. No, sorry, five out of 6.
you want to hear the real tragedy about this? In 2017, or 2018, I'm sorry. My uncle, who was the biggest Chiefs fan I ever knew, my cousin is named after a Chief. Um, he passed away before they won the first one. And so he hasn't lived to see this amazing, crazy run that they've had. But I know that somewhere out there in the universe, he's definitely happy and has a can of Busch Light cracked open, watching it with us. But yeah, that's the tragic part of it. But yeah, three in a row, and we've got the promotions tagging along with it. We got Instacart is has an ad this year.
Yes,
Um,
in fact, our viewers can watch it right on our site. We embedded the 30-second ad, we embedded the 60-second extended version, and they have some behind the scenes, which are of course fake, but they're still funny. Uh, yeah, I mean they're promoting grocery products. That's good
Hey,
to see.
that's within our scope of coverage. And the funny thing is okay, they can say that they have a Super Bowl ad, right? Aldi brought back its quarterback promotion, and in Aldi fashion, it's the big game. Uh,
Well, yes, it's Aldi isn't wasting money on copyright and all these rights and stuff. So yes, it's the big game for Aldi, but they did get a former Super Bowl MVP as their spokesman. That would be
and
Drew Brees, who is not in the Hall of Fame yet, but he will be once his 5 years after playing his last game are up.
and you know what I thought was interesting about the news release about it is that it's not just Drew Brees. It's Drew Brees and his wife Brittany shopping at Aldi, talking about all the things that you can make for your big game, uh, celebrations there. So I thought that was interesting that it's not just Drew, it's also Mrs. Breeze, joining the promotion. So that's fun. But according to Wells Fargo, we don't have a whole lot to worry about because there's no inflation in Super Bowl food.
Well, I that is true. They say it of the selected foods that they've chosen, it is 0.1% above last year's prices. And we did include a chart so you can see cherry tomatoes and avocados are over 10% higher than last year. But the other end of the scale, broccoli and celery, 7 and 8% lower than a year ago. Cauliflower's lower than a year ago. So there is a I don't know if that's a an awesome list. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's not in that list. Not a whole
Yeah,
lot of food in there.
there's a lot of stuff on the list. The cherry tomatoes and avocados aren't the good news. That's 11%, and both of them up 11%. Red bell peppers are up 7%. Down at the bottom of the list, we got broccoli and celery offsetting that, but there's also like shrimp.
Shrimp is
Um,
way down from last year. How about that? Shrimp cocktails for everyone.
but for this random assortment of foods, much of which is fresh produce, interestingly enough. And these usually only have like one or two token items. Like the Thanksgiving thing is always like potatoes and maybe onions and cranberries. So to see that they're talking about more fresh produce, I thought was encouraging just to remind people that let's eat fresh produce for Super Bowl food and not just hot wings, no
Yeah.
matter how good they are.
And
Um,
beer and wine are slightly up over last year, but not significantly.
yeah, that's not going to put a dent in your Super Bowl celebration, hopefully. Um, I thought that was interesting. The bummer of it though is that the 11% increase in price for avocados, we also got a news release. The crop estimate for California's avocados is the largest in 5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5 years, 2020.
fantastic. Yeah, so they kick off in the spring, of course. So that'll get you for Cinco de Mayo and Memorial Day and things like that. But just not the big game. But that's fantastic news coming out of California, and they have a new they're launching the latest edition of What's Inside a California Avocado. Looking at groves and locally grown, sustainable, that kind of stuff. So we'll look forward to that starting in the spring, of course. And then California Avocado Month is in June, I think. Pretty sure.
Yeah, and Mexico is going to supply the bulk of this holiday, and they'll still be available, just a little higher. They do mention that um, prepared guacamole is lower increase than last year,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so that's a possibility. I mean, any good prepared guacamole has actual avocados in it. Do not get prepared guacamole that does not have avocados in it. That goes back to one of your videos.
Yes, that does go back to one of my videos. And actually, I republished that on National Avocado Day. I think it was back in September. All of the imposter guacamoles that I made, which included edamame and calabacitas, like green squash or gray squash, frozen peas, fresh peas. But I think the frozen pea one was the one that I think got me in the doghouse with everyone that had to try it. They were all mad. Everyone was mad about it.
It seems like the sort of thing that you've done in the past and you can just repost to TikTok and just throw it out there and see if it does well. You
Yeah,
have
you
any
know what?
experience with that?
I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to what's going on right now in the news. And we're talking about farm workers and availability of farm workers and who's going to pick our produce if we don't have the available farm workers, which the produce industry has been working hard for as long as I've been in it, at least the last 20 years of workable guest worker programs or, all of the solutions that we've been trying to come up with labor. But I was in California back in 2019 and doing a field tour. And when you do a field tour at a strawberry place, typically they have you pick some strawberries just to give you an appreciation of how difficult it is. And we all know it's difficult. But I am the type of person that is not afraid to make myself look like a fool and try to pick some strawberries. And I republished that video on TikTok, and the 833,000 people who have seen it in the last couple of days agree with me that it is very difficult to pick strawberries, and a lot of them were making fun of me, and that is totally valid, and that's why I put myself out there to do it. But I thought it was really timely, and the fact that TikTok showed it to that many people shows that people are very interested in the topic right now. That was the bottom line of it. And of course, this was a lighthearted take on a very serious issue. But if you go read the more than 1,000 comments, you will see what people think about it, and about what I'm wearing, and that I didn't have my hair put up, and that I put one in my pocket, and whoa, boy.
You don't
You
you can't read them all. It's
gotta have
not
a
good
thick
for
skin.
you. I've heard. I've not gone viral with any of my stuff. Our videos do well in the industry, but not not to six figures.
No, not to six
Five
figures.
figures would be awfully impressive.
I bet you I'll hit 1 million over the weekend, depending on what's going on. But that was a really interesting look at what people are thinking about when we're talking about farm workers. We've had a lot of headlines lately about possible issues that are happening in California, but we haven't had any of our members reach out to us directly to say, "Hey, we need to be writing about this." I've had a couple of folks text me on the down low going, "Hey, have you heard anything?" And honestly, I haven't. So if this is an issue that we need to be raising awareness about, let us know. I mean, I've seen a couple of industry organizations quoted in some stories, California Citrus Mutual, the California Farm Bureau out there advocating for the industry and to make sure that we have adequate workers out there in the field to make sure that we don't have huge supply gaps or huge price increases because we don't have who we need out there to be picking a lot of our produce. So, very serious topic, lighthearted video, but everyone really wants to know about it and to show what it's like to bend over like that for even the 30 seconds that the guy, I timed a guy. It took him 30 seconds to fill a clamshell and it looked beautiful, past inspection. It took me like 2 minutes to find the right strawberries, to not snap off the stem, to have no white shoulders, to have them the right size because they want them all close to the same size. And of course, the inspector guy was being picky just to teach me a lesson. And I deserved it. But it is very difficult, and even filling one clamshell was too much for my back.
Well, you're clearly not a professional.
No, I'm not a professional, and I called these folks professionals. It is a highly skilled profession to get out there and do this stuff in each different one. I wonder what people would think if they ever saw artichoke pickers. I mean, knives in each hand and a canasta on their back, and like chuck it, like cutting and chucking like artichokes, like no look passes. I mean, this is some serious stuff, and it is not
It's
easy.
impressive. Yeah.
And it has an extreme learning curve, and you have to be very motivated to get good at it.
Yeah, it's not an easy issue, and the flip side of that is getting a lot of people say either import your food or import your workers. Importing food, the flip side of that is we have issues with threats of tariffs from our closest neighbors. I still think it's a negotiating ploy, and the presumptive USDA secretary was talked before a congressional committee this week, and we did have a story about some of the things she said. And um, I think there's still a lot more for us to learn about that one. In addition to the immigration administration is saying they're going after people who commit crimes above illegal immigration, and so hopefully that means farm workers who might have some issues if they're not committing crimes. Otherwise, they'll be left alone, at least in this period. So the problem with enforcing all this stuff is it's going to lead to food inflation, and that's one thing that Trump ran on, and it's something that American voters really held it to the Biden administration over the last 4 years, and 20 to 25% food inflation during his term. Especially in 22 when government spending was higher, that's where we saw the highest year-over-year food inflation. So that would go against one of the reasons that he sold himself to America. So
Yeah,
those
I
are
mean,
those are two issues that those are very complicated.
yeah, they're very complicated, and the shock and awe news cycle right now is making everyone uneasy, including folks who might be undocumented. And if it makes them too uneasy to show up to work, then things will not get picked. So we'll have to see what happens next. But for now, I'm gonna keep watching TikTok and watch my numbers go up. Maybe I can get enough subscribers to make some money doing it.
Well, speaking of what happens next, we kicked
Yeah.
off the show because this is the last produce reporter, as Pamela is leaving the Blue Book and going to do her own thing and be still involved in the industry. So, what can you say about that?
Well, what I can say about it now is I've got a couple of projects cooking, and this is not the last you will see of me out there. The Produce with Pamela name lives on. So Chewy's just bailing on this. See you later, dog. So, I mean, because look at this, produce isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle. So, even though this job is ending for me, there are a lot more open windows. So, you will see me around social media, you'll see me out on LinkedIn. You will see me on stages coming up soon for a lot of different events and organizations. So, this isn't the end, this is just signing off for now. And of course, I will be checking in from time to time whenever we can do it.
Yeah, to remind our viewers, we pretty much started doing this weekly in January of 2019, which means close, for my 6 years and 50 a year, I think my journalism math says that's around 600 videos.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We've been cranking out a lot of 600. Wait,
Oh,
50
300.
times 6, 300.
Sorry.
Yeah, your
Let's
journalism
see,
math is
journalism
terrible.
math, 300. Let's say around 300.
Around 300, we did not miss very many weeks. Whether we were on vacation, I've done I remember you did one from a dairy farm or something like that in Maine with like cows running around.
That was my friend's backyard, and there were cows. That is for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
He has his own cows and pigs, and yeah, I did one for Maine. We've I've done it for my brother's office in Idaho. You've done it from, didn't I did it from a grocery store one time?
Yeah, I did it from a grocery store trying not to get kicked out of a Publix, I think it was in Nashville. My friend's Airbnb in Bavaria. Yeah, actually I was out on her porch 2 years ago at Christmas time in Bavaria trying to make sure there was enough light because it was so dark there. Yeah. So it's been fun. It's been a fun 6 years of doing this what everyone calls our little podcast, but it's never actually been a podcast. It's just a video of us chit-chatting about what's going on and bringing your attention to things that we think need a second look or some analysis or just kind of what does this mean to you? Has been a lot of fun and really engaging for a lot of folks. And I get a lot of feedback on the weekend review, so this can't be the end. So we'll definitely have to check in.
I think there's a possibility we could do a cameo or two in the future.
All right. Well, that's it for the final Produce Reporter Weekend Review. If you are not getting the weekend review, too bad. Go look at the old ones.
You
Go to
can
Produce
find a
Reporter.
list of a bunch of them on our YouTube channel, which we'll just include the link. How about that?
Yeah. All right. In the meantime, keep getting the Produce Reporter newsletter by going to producebluebook.com and sign up. We'll see ya.